There were a couple weird kids at my high school, and to be honest, I was probably one of them. However, one kid named Jeremy was probably the strangest. For some reason, the teachers and administrators gave us access to a microwave during lunch, and Jeremy always talked about creating a subnuclear potato. Supposedly that was just a potato heated up so much that it would go subnuclear, though I'm not sure Jeremy actually understood chemistry or nuclear reactions. I'd hear him ramble about it between bites of soggy cafeteria fries. It's not just cooking it, he'd say, his eyes wide with excitement. It's about pushing it past its limits, unlocking something inside. Most of us just laughed it off. Jeremy was that kid, always spouting crazy ideas, sketching weird diagrams in his notebook instead of doing homework. But there was something about the way he talked about those potatoes that stuck with me, like a splinter under your skin you can't quite dig out. It was a chilly Friday in October when Jeremy decided to stop talking and start doing. He cornered me, Alex, and Sam after last period. "Tonight's the night," he whispered, clutching a ratty backpack stuffed with potatoes. "I need witnesses. You in?" Alex, the fearless one, shrugged and said sure. Sam, always the nervous type, hesitated but caved when I agreed. I still don't know why I said yes. Curiosity maybe, or just boredom. Looking back, I wish I'd walked away. We met up at the school around 8 p.m., the sky already dark and the air thick with that damp, earthy smell of fall. The building was locked, but Jeremy knew a side door by the cafeteria that the janitors never checked. We slipped inside, our footsteps echoing in the empty halls. The cafeteria smelled faintly of grease and bleach, and there it was, the microwave, sitting on a scratched-up counter like some ancient relic. Jeremy dumped his potatoes onto a table, 5 of them, lumpy and unremarkable. "We start small," he said, popping the first one into the microwave and setting it for 10 minutes. The hum filled the silence as we watched through the little window. 10 minutes later it beeped, and out came a steaming, shriveled potato. "This is boring," Alex muttered. Jeremy smirked. Patience. Next one, 20 minutes. Same deal, hot, mushy, nothing special. But the air in the room started to feel heavy, like a storm was brewing indoors. Sam shifted uncomfortably. "Maybe we should call it, guys," he said, voice tight. Jeremy ignored him, grabbing a third potato. "This time, we go big. 1 hour." I laughed nervously. "That's insane. The microwave will break." Jeremy's eyes locked onto mine, unblinking. "Exactly." He punched in 60 minutes and hit start. The microwave groaned to life, louder than before. 5 minutes in, the lights overhead flickered. 10 minutes, and a low buzz crept into my ears, not from the machine, but from everywhere. By 30 minutes, the microwave was rattling on the counter like it was trying to shake itself apart. Through the window, I saw it. The potato was glowing. Not just hot. Glowing, a sickly green light pulsing inside its skin. "Jeremy, stop it," I yelled, reaching for the plug. He grabbed my arm, his grip like iron. "Wait," he hissed, staring at the microwave like it was a holy vision. The buzzing grew into a roar, and then, boom, the door flew open, hinges snapping like twigs. A wave of heat hit us, reeking of burnt starch and something metallic. And there, hovering in the air, was the potato, or what used to be a potato. It was bigger now, swollen and throbbing, its skin splitting to reveal a wet, fleshy mass underneath. Tendrils sprouted from its sides, wriggling like worms, and a jagged slit opened across its front, leaking that green light. It screeched, a sound like nails on a chalkboard mixed with a dying animal, and we bolted. "Run!" Alex shouted, dragging Sam toward the exit. I followed, but I couldn't help looking back. Jeremy wasn't moving. Instead, he just stood there, staring at it, a twisted smile on his face. The creature, because that's what it was now, lurched toward him, tendrils lashing out. I heard him scream, a sound cut short as it enveloped him. We didn't stop running until we hit the parking lot, lungs burning and hearts pounding. "What the hell was that?" Sam gasped, tears streaming down his face. Alex shook his head, pale as a ghost. "We need to get help." But before we could move, the ground trembled. A faint green glow seeped from the cafeteria windows, and that buzzing started again, louder and closer. We didn't go back. Police showed up the next morning after a neighbor reported weird lights. They found the cafeteria trashed, tables overturned, and the microwave melted into a lump of plastic and metal. There was no sign of Jeremy, just a pile of potato skins scattered across the floor, still warm to the touch. They called it vandalism and blamed some prank gone wrong. We didn't correct them because how could we? Weeks later, I started noticing things. A faint hum in my ears at night, a green tint in the corner of my vision. And once, in the grocery store, I swear I saw a potato twitch on the shelf. I don't know what Jeremy unleashed that night, but I can't shake the feeling it's not over. Somewhere, in some dark corner, that subnuclear thing is still out there, pulsing, waiting. And I wonder if it remembers us. Growing up, my childhood was pretty tame. I lived in the suburbs with my family, and basically nothing bad ever happened. However, I did have one rather terrifying experience this one time we went to an amusement park. It was water-themed, though I don't recall the name of this place. I'm like 95% sure it wasn't a well-known park chain like SeaWorld or Six Flags. Instead, it seemed like a smaller, slightly run-down family joint with decorations from the 70s. I remember being excited when I found out there was an actual submarine ride. My little brother Jeff and I started begging my parents to take us on it. After some relentless pleading, my parents gave in, and soon we were standing in line for the ride. The submarine itself looked like a relic, painted and chipped yellow and blue, with a faded sign above the entrance that read, Deep Sea Explorer. The air smelled faintly of mildew and chlorine, and the whole setup had this weird, nostalgic vibe that made it feel like we'd step back in time. Jeff was practically bouncing with excitement, and I couldn't wait to get inside either. We climbed down a narrow ladder into the submarine, squeezing into rows of hard metal seats. The interior was cramped, with tiny portholes lining the walls and a control panel up front that looked more like a prop than anything functional. As the hatch slammed shut behind us, I nudged Jeff and grinned. "Hey, imagine if this thing ran on potatoes instead of fuel," I said, trying to get a laugh out of him. "We'd have subnuclear potatoes powering us through the water." Jeff snorted, his eyes lighting up at the ridiculous idea, and even my dad let out a quiet chuckle from the seat behind us. The ride started with a jolt, and the submarine began its slow descent into the murky water. The portholes offered glimpses of the outside, dark greenish waves swirling past, occasionally interrupted by a plastic fish or a fake coral reef. The overhead lights buzzed faintly, casting long shadows across the floor. It was cool at first, but there was something about the tight space and the groaning metal that started to feel off. About 10 minutes in, the submarine shuddered hard, like it had hit something. The lights flickered, and a low, grinding noise echoed through the hull. Jeff grabbed my arm, his excitement replaced with wide-eyed worry. What was that? Before I could answer him, the ride operator's voice crackled over a speaker, sounding oddly calm. Folks, just a minor glitch. We'll be back on track in a sec." But the grinding didn't stop. It got louder, like something was scraping against the outside of the sub. I pressed my face to the nearest porthole, squinting into the gloom. At first, I saw nothing but bubbles and shadows. Then something moved, a dark, lumpy shape drifting just beyond the glass. It was too murky to make out details, but it didn't look like part of the ride. My stomach twisted as the shape floated closer, and for a split second, I swear it looked like a potato, a giant bloated potato with strange, jagged edges. Then the lights cut out completely, plunging us into pitch black. Jeff yelped, and I fumbled for his hand, my heart hammering in my chest. The grinding turned into a rhythmic thumping, like something was pounding on the hull. Then, out of nowhere, a faint green glow lit up the interior, not from the lights, but from the front of the submarine. I squinted toward the control panel and froze. There, wedged between two levers, was a potato. A real one, glowing with this sickly, unnatural light. "What the?" I muttered, my voice shaking. The potato pulsed like it was alive, and tiny cracks spread across its surface. Before I could process what I was seeing, the submarine lurched again, tilting sharply to one side. People screamed, and my mom shouted for us to hold on. The glowing potato rolled free from the panel, landing on the floor with a wet thud. As it hit, the thumping outside stopped, replaced by an eerie silence. I couldn't take my eyes off it. The cracks widened, and something dark oozed out, thick like tar, but moving, spreading across the floor toward us. Jeff whimpered, pulling his feet up onto the seat. "Make it stop," he cried. I wanted to tell him it was just a prank, some weird part of the ride, but deep down I knew it wasn't. Whatever that thing was, it wasn't normal. Then the submarine jolted upright, and the lights flickered back on. The tar-like stuff vanished, and the potato sat there, lifeless and ordinary looking, like it had never moved. The ride continued as if nothing had happened, gliding smoothly back to the surface. When the hatch opened, we scrambled out, my legs wobbly and my mind racing. The operator didn't even glance at us. Instead, he just waved the next group in like it was business as usual. Later on, I overheard my dad talking to a park employee, asking what caused the glitch. The guy shrugged and said something about old wiring acting up. But as we walked away, I snuck a look back at the submarine. Through one of the portholes, I saw it again, that faint green glow pulsing faintly in the dark. And I swear, just for a moment, I heard a low, muffled thump, like something was still down there, waiting. I never told Jeff what I saw. I didn't want to scare him more than he already was. But every now and then, when I pass a grocery store or see a potato on my plate, I think about that day. I wonder if my dumb joke about subnuclear potatoes wasn't as far-fetched as I thought. As a physics major, I went pretty far down the rabbit hole of what most people would consider academic or theoretical work. But I couldn't help it, as that's just my personality. I get fascinated by this stuff. One of my classes had to do with the design of nuclear reactors, and I found the material captivating. The way energy could be harnessed from splitting atoms, it was like unlocking the secrets of the universe. I'd stay up late, poring over textbooks, scribbling equations, and dreaming of making my mark on the field. That's when I got the idea for subnuclear potatoes. It hit me during a lecture on critical mass, the point where nuclear fuel becomes unstable and triggers a runaway chain reaction. The professor was explaining how traditional fuel rods were bulky and hard to manage, and I started wondering, what if we could break it down into smaller, safer pieces? I imagined little potato-sized lumps of subcritical mass, each one harmless on its own, but capable of producing a controlled reaction when combined just right. I called them subnuclear potatoes because they reminded me of those knobby, uneven spuds my mom used to mash up for dinner. I couldn't let the idea go. I spent weeks in my dorm room running simulations and tweaking designs. Eventually, I worked up the nerve to pitch it to my advisor, Dr. Kessler. He was a wiry guy with sharp eyes and a habit of pacing when he talked. When I showed him my notes, he stopped mid-step and stared at me. "This is unorthodox," he said, rubbing his chin. "But it might just work." Before I knew it, he'd roped in 2 other professors, Dr. Vargas, a reactor engineer, and Dr. Monroe, a radiation specialist, to help me test it. We set up shop in the university's old nuclear lab, a concrete bunker tucked away behind the science building. The place always gave me the creeps, dim lights, peeling paint, and a faint hum that never quite went away. But I was too excited to care. After months of prep, we crafted our first batch of subnuclear potatoes, small, dull gray spheres, each about the size of my fist. They felt heavier than they looked, like they were packed with secrets. The big day came on a cold, rainy evening. We suited up in protective gear, thick suits, gloves, and helmets with visors that made everything look slightly warped. The subnuclear potatoes sat in a lead-lined crate, ready to be loaded into a custom reactor we'd built. Dr. Kessler gave me the nod. "You're the mastermind, kid. Start the sequence." I flipped the switch and the reactor whirred to life. The plan was simple: slide the potatoes into a circular array, bringing them close enough to kick off a low-level reaction. The monitors lit up with data, neutron counts, temperature, radiation levels, all climbing steadily. "It's working," Dr. Vargas said, her voice tight with excitement. I grinned behind my visor. This was it, my breakthrough. But then, things got weird. The hum from the reactor deepened, like a growl rumbling through the floor. The lights flickered, casting jagged shadows across the room. I checked my readings. Everything was still in the green, but my stomach twisted. "You hear that?" I asked, glancing at Dr. Monroe. He frowned, adjusting his helmet. Probably just the cooling system. Before I could argue, the monitors beeped sharply. The neutron count spiked, then dropped, then spiked again, like a heartbeat gone haywire. Dr. Kessler leaned over my shoulder. "What's happening to the core?" I didn't have an answer. Through the reactor's observation port, I saw the subnuclear potatoes trembling. Tiny vibrations at first, then full-on shaking, like they were alive. "Shut it down," Dr. Vargas snapped, reaching for the controls. But the system locked up, buttons dead, screens frozen. The growl turned into a high-pitched whine, and the potatoes started to glow. Not bright, not like you'd expect from uranium, but a sickly, bluish hue that made my eyes ache. The air felt thick and heavy, like it was pressing down on us. "We need to vent the chamber," Dr. Monroe yelled, but it was too late. One of the potatoes cracked open, spilling a thread of blue light that writhed like smoke. Then another split, and another, until the reactor looked like it was bleeding energy. I stumbled back, my suit's Geiger counter screaming in my ear. The radiation wasn't just spiking, it was changing, shifting into something the sensors couldn't identify. The room shook, and a wave of heat slammed into us. I hit the ground hard, my visor cracking against the concrete. Through the haze, I saw the professor scrambling, shouting over the noise. Then silence, just for a split second, before an explosion rocked the lab. Not fire, not debris, but a pulse of that blue light, so intense it burned through my eyelids even after I squeezed them shut. When I opened my eyes, I was outside, sprawled in the wet grass. The lab's emergency evac system must have kicked in, dragging us out through a hatch. My suit was scorched and my helmet was gone. Dr. Kessler was nearby, coughing, while Dr. Vargas helped Dr. Monroe to his feet. The lab building loomed behind us, intact but dark, like it was holding its breath. The university hushed it up fast. They called it a minor equipment failure and said we tripped a safety protocol. We were all sent home with strict orders to keep quiet. But I couldn't sleep and couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those potatoes glowing, splitting, and reaching out. A week later, I found something that made my blood run cold. I kept one of the subnuclear potatoes, a prototype, stashed in my bag as a memento. When I pulled it out of my drawer, it wasn't dull gray anymore. It was warm, faintly pulsing with that same blue light. I dropped it, and it rolled under my bed, humming softly. That night, I woke up to a scratching sound. Not loud, just persistent, like fingernails on wood. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and looked under the bed. The potato was there, but it wasn't alone. Tiny, thread-like tendrils had sprouted from its surface, digging into the floorboards, spreading like roots. And it was bigger, swollen, like it had fed on something. I bolted out of my room, heart pounding, and called Dr. Kessler. He didn't answer, neither did Dr. Vargas or Dr. Monroe. By morning, I got a text from an unknown number, "Destroy it, now." But when I went back, the potato was gone. The floor was cracked and splintered, with a faint blue stain seeping into the wood. I don't know where it went, but I feel it. That hum, it's in my head now, faint but constant. Sometimes, late at night, I hear scratching from the walls, the ceiling, and the floor. And last night, I swear I saw a flicker of blue light outside my window, moving through the shadows. I don't think the subnuclear potatoes are just fuel. I think there's something else, something we woke up. And I don't know how to stop it.